What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of Banter from the Bench podcast.
Soundstripe.
I am Kevin, and I'm here with
Sean, and just a friendly reminder to all of our lots and lots of listeners that tuned in to episode 1. We are going to cover both national sports and Chicago sports, and the way we're formatting this is we'll talk some national stuff first, and then we'll get into the more of our bread and butter and talk about all our beloved Chicago sports teams. So just a little reminder for you guys, we'll definitely be covering both. We're going to start off with some national stuff and then get more into the fun stuff. So welcome aboard for episode 2, but really kind of like episode 1. So happy to have you guys here and hope you enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. I know obviously one of the big stories recently was the NBA draft lottery. This year's draft is an interesting one. I don't really think that there's anybody worth taking 1-1 in this year's draft. You know, if you had this year's draft many other years, a lot of these players would be second round guys. But I mean, you were able to watch more of it than I could. I had an event for my mobile bartending business, but what was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I texted you during it. My first takeaway was actually, let me backtrack. So I didn't even really know it was happening until the day of the NBA draft lottery because I was just tuned out. But then I was like, okay, I was free that day, so I was like, I can watch it. And then I texted you when, it was getting ready to start, and I was like, you know what's going to happen, right? I was like, the Bulls will win this lottery because it's so bad. Turns out they didn't win. The Atlanta Hawks won. Which was a bit of a surprise. I think they had maybe third or fourth worst odds to win the lottery, and I want to say I saw on there they said it was like the first time they won since the 70s, or kind of around that time. But kind of interesting, I think that of all teams to win that draft lottery, Atlanta's one that has some of the most interesting situation now, because all they've been talking about for the past couple months is are we gonna trade Trae Young? Are we gonna get rid of Dejounte Murray? Are we gonna try to keep one? Do we want to sell off both and rebuild? And now they get hit with getting the number 1 pick, which kind of forces their hand a little bit. They can still trade those guys, get a couple extra picks, or whatever they're searching for if they want like a player heavy package or whatever. Or they can use the number 1 pick to get a guy to build around the team that they currently have, because they probably didn't expect to be in this situation. So now they kind of, even though the top of the draft is a little bit weak compared to previous years, now they have the opportunity to get whoever they want, which is not necessarily a bad thing. If they do decide to keep Trae and or Dejounte, whoever they decide to take, they got to make sure they get it right, because that's a pretty big commitment. So kind of interesting. I think it's a pretty fascinating opportunity that they have, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for them.
Yeah, I think if you're the Hawks, I feel like you have to trade one of Trae or Dejounte Murray, and the reason for that is, even if you add a guy as the number 1 pick, it doesn't seem like they're going to be really heavy contenders. I mean, they had to play the Bulls in a playoff game, and there was a lot of jokes around that too, where if the Bulls just lost to the Hawks, that they'd have the number 1 overall pick, which is ironic. But I think if I'm the Hawks front office, I would definitely trade one. I'd even entertain trading both, because then what that allows you to do is build draft capital in heavier, more talented drafts. Because, like I said, even if they add so whoever they take number one overall, it's not going to make them a huge playoff contender. It really doesn't make too much of a difference. But that's just my take. I mean, I feel like I said before, this year's draft is pretty interesting. Bulls with the 11th pick overall. They could go a flurry of different directions there. I honestly, if it was a more talented draft, I think I'd prefer them just to trade it and get more draft capital down the road. But I don't even think anybody wants that pick right now. So they're in an interesting position. I've seen them linked to a couple different players at this point. But I think one team that you look at who has a really interesting draft night is the Spurs. You know, you look at, I think they're at what, 4 and 8 right now. Their draft picks are. Yeah. So
yep, they got 4 and 8.
So they're in a position right now where it's like, do we trade the 4th overall pick and the 8th overall pick and just build around Victor Wembanyama and get a proven NBA player? I think that might be their best bet, in all honesty. So I don't know. The draft is going to be really interesting this year. There's a lot of rumors with the Lakers going after a star right now. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's going to be a weird one.
In other words, water is wet. It's like every summer. It's like the Lakers and the Knicks. They're always going to do so much, and then I mean, the Lakers do a decent amount, but they're just a little bit against the cap compared to some other teams. But yeah, it's always like, oh, Lakers and Knicks they're gonna splurge, and this is gonna be the year. I think the Spurs are in a really interesting situation too because they got to look at it from the perspective of, do we like people enough at 4 and 8 to keep those picks, or do we try and trade them to get someone who's more proven, get a star player to build around Wemby and try to start turning the corner now? And also what I think is pretty funny too is, like, you look at 4 and 8, like, that's a package who could get like Dejounte Murray, who actually now would be a very, very good fit on the Spurs team. But it's like, you just had him, so they're probably not going to do something like that. They could maybe look at a player like Zach LaVine or something like that to kind of get some more scoring and get some guard play around Wemby. But they could also they draft and develop pretty well. So they also could look at those picks and be like, hey, we see some things in some guys here that we think could really contribute heavily to our team, and maybe they, compete a little more this year, but still kind of get another decent draft pick, and then say, like, the year after that, like, hey, like, we're all in now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. They definitely got some flexibility too, and obviously, draft, like we just said, draft starts with Atlanta, and they have all the opportunities in the world. So I think it'll be pretty heavy in the rumors, and the draft board could look a lot different once we get closer to the draft there, depending on who makes moves and whatnot. That's kind of the fun thing about the NBA. It might take one team to kickstart all this stuff, and then you get a flurry of move after move after move after move. So it'll be interesting, because you brought up a good point too. And while all this stuff sounds great, and in an ideal world, teams would be able to trade whoever they want, or trade whatever picks they want for whoever they want. But also, like, these picks probably from most GMs around the league, if not all GMs around the league, probably don't value them quite as much as they normally would value a first round draft pick. I think I was looking into something. I think it maybe was Bill Simmons or someone. It was talking about, this is one of the worst draft classes in the last 30-something years, and he compared getting number one this year is like getting picked 7 or 8 in previous drafts. So you kind of gotta think about that a little bit too. And I don't know, it's tough. I'm glad that the Bulls aren't picking first, because I really don't know. I don't know what I would want them to do, but
yeah, this isn't the year for that. I actually saw a player comparison of what the number one overall pick could be compared to, and they said Tobias Harris, and I'm like, okay, that's a little rough. He's a good role player, but like, he's not going to change your franchise around.
Yeah.
Honestly, even just like spitfiring right now, man. Like, if we're looking at teams that could go after Trae Young, like, could you imagine if the Minnesota Timberwolves found a way to add a guy like Trae Young? Like, to have Trae Young and Anthony Edwards and the bigs that they do, my God, that team would be nasty.
I think if they do something like that, it probably means they got rid of Karl Anthony Towns, and I think that's probably a decent possibility for them. I would anticipate them maybe making a splash like that, but it's going to come at the expense of shaking up their roster a little bit because I think they're over the salary or the luxury tax or whatever, or they're pretty
Yeah.
close to it, and that's kind of that's that's a little out of the ordinary for them. That's something that they typically don't do, and also too, like, their series is going on. They're playing as we speak. It seems like Denver's probably going to win. Um, and so that might cause a little bit of a shakeup with what Minnesota's got going on. And I think just in today's NBA, building through multiple bigs is a little bit hard to do. I think they'll probably keep Rudy, A, because he's starting to look really good there compared to how he was when he first came over. And B, his contract's pretty tough to move as opposed to Karl Anthony Towns, who's having a good year, all things considered.
Oh yeah.
And just is a little bit easier to move for them. So I think that they could do something like that. It would just have to, it would result from them, moving another piece of theirs. But, just because you get rid of one piece doesn't automatically make you worse. They could find someone who's a lot better of a fit for them too. But that would,
Plus,
that'd be unbelievable watching them, Karl Anthony Towns and Trae Young or Deontay Murray, or I've even seen Darius Garland thrown around there. Like anyone like that, like joining that team would be awesome, especially considering they got like Mike Conley, who's one of the best mentors you can have in the NBA too.
Yep. And I think, when you think about Karl Anthony Towns and shopping him, a lot of teams would want his services because his game fits really well in the modern day NBA. He's able to spread the floor. He's able to hit threes. I mean, the man is in 3-point competitions. You know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous.
He won one.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's ridiculous. I feel like he fits really well in the NBA, so there'd probably be a lot of suitors there. And the NBA playoffs, that's a whole nother story in itself. Obviously, we can fall down that rabbit hole, but if we roll into what's happening right now in Major League Baseball, there's a couple interesting stories. Obviously, one of the big ones is Paul Skenes making his debut. I'll let you dive deeper into that. I know you were able to watch that yourself. So what did you think? I mean, we know the stat line. We know what his numbers look like. We know what kind of stuff he has. But, like, actually being able to watch him in his Major League debut, what did you notice?
Yeah, I did have the luxury of being able to watch all of it, and kind of going into it, I was sitting down and I was trying to think, like, how long has it been since we've had a debut this exciting for just from like a national perspective? Obviously, Pirates fans were, waking up or not sleeping the night before, and we're super pumped to watch him pitch. But just the national media and everyone was all over his debut, looking forward to it and stuff. And I think probably I would say maybe this was the most anticipated debut since maybe Steven Strasburg.
It's exactly where I was going with it.
Yeah, and so it was just kind of cool taking all that in, and granted the White Sox haven't had a pitcher of that caliber make a debut, but it had me thinking, like, we've had some fun ones, and it had me thinking, like, as a Pirates fan, like, this day is awesome. Like, there's nothing like having a stud pitcher make his MLB debut, because it's fun having position players do it too. But there's nothing like a pitcher, because they're like the artist that's controlling the game out there. It's just them throwing the ball to a catcher and showing off their stuff. It's really, really fun to be able to take that in and enjoy that. And he brought it too. It was exciting. He struck out 2 in the first inning. I think it was his first 2 batters he struck out. And he was pumping 101, 102. He was looking pretty good. He was a little over the place. You could tell he was excited and stuff like that. And obviously, I'm sure he was nervous too. It's something he's been wanting to do his whole life. But overall, I thought he looked pretty good. He gave up some runs that he put runners on, and the reliever inherited them, and reliever gave up a couple base hits, I believe, and that led to a couple runs there. But overall, if I were a Pirates fan, I would have been satisfied with the debut. I think they really showed out for him, which was cool to see too, because it's not really a team that you see a fun atmosphere like that too often. So
Which is
that
a
was
shame because their park is awesome.
yeah, yeah. So it was fun to see that place packed and to see everyone getting rowdy for it. And I do got to give the Pittsburgh local broadcasting team some credit. One thing that baseball has always kind of struggled with is catering towards different generations. It's just kind of always stayed the same, and that's why there's a lot of baseball fans, but like true diehards, like few and far between. I feel like. Just because the game doesn't really market itself well, and you might go through periods where it's hard to watch some of the stars of baseball, and they're not as easily accessible as some other sports. But the local Pittsburgh broadcast team did go up to Paul Skenes' suite. And this probably isn't a secret or anything, but he's dating Livy Dunn, who's pretty popular, and they interviewed her during the game, which I thought was cool because there'll be kids or even just girls. I know she's a big gymnast that'll watch that and they'll be like, "Oh, that's fun. I want to watch baseball more because of her," and they're getting her involved. So, got to give them credit for that too. I think that was pretty good idea by them, and obviously probably helped their viewership quite a bit too. So, just
She
kinda
gave a
cool
good
that they did
interview.
that.
Yeah, I'll give it to her. She gave a good interview. I saw a couple clips of it, and she did a good job. Obviously, she's there to support her man, but she gave a good interview, and I think that was a nice little touch by them too. Did I see? Wasn't there news this week about some type of streaming deal for baseball too?
Yeah, so kind of going back to the whole, growing the game and making it more accessible. They announced a deal with Roku where, for those who might not know, last year MLB took select games on Peacock on Sunday mornings, and they set them up to where it was the only game on, exclusively on Peacock, and it was just random teams that they would have playing one game. I think it was every Sunday. I think it started after Memorial Day, maybe right before. So they did that. That was the first time the MLB did that. That required a Peacock subscription. Now what they've done is they have struck a deal with Roku where they will do the same thing this year that they did with Peacock. It's just going to be through Roku. Now, the cool thing about what they're doing with Roku this time around is it's going to be free for everyone to watch. So, you know, like for myself, for example, I live in North Dakota. If I have local cable, it's the Minnesota Twins that I can watch, and that's it. Now this allows me to, or anyone to be able to watch different teams, have access to different teams. So
Hang on for one
yeah,
second. You talked about growing the game, right, and modernizing baseball. I think that this is a big opportunity to do that, right? It takes a lot of time to learn the game of baseball and all the intricacies of the game of baseball. And I think that this opens up the doors for a lot of people, even the younger kids, right, to be able to watch sports. So like maybe me living in Arizona, being a White Sox fan, thanks to T-Mobile, shout out to T-Mobile, I can watch them whenever I want. But if I couldn't, and I had kids that couldn't watch the White Sox, like now with this deal, at least a couple games a year, I'd be able to watch for free. So I think that this is a big opportunity for them to continue to grow the game, to continue to grow the fan base, and hopefully target the younger audience, because it feels like a lot of the younger kids are just falling out of love with baseball or just never really learn about how fun the game can actually be to learn and to watch.
yeah, and for the kids who don't have the luxury of being able to go to a ballpark, whenever they can or whenever they can afford to, they might not be able to see as many players as some other kids do, and that's how a lot of them become fans. I know for me personally, it usually kind of started with a certain athlete or someone that I liked watching, and then I started watching it more and more and more and more and more and more. So it gives them access to be able to do that, and it gives them access to be able to do that for free, which I think is big too. MLB's trying different things. They're trying the Apple TV thing, which obviously I think they give one or two of those games for free. At least I know they did last year. and then they go behind a paywall. So, people might not want to
Yeah.
pay that, or people might not be able to afford to pay that, and they did the same thing with Peacock last year. So really, it's like you just get to watch your local team, and you might not even be able to do that because even cable's expensive for people these days. So just giving people something that's free, giving some people something that they normally don't get by allowing them to watch different teams on Roku without blackout restrictions too. So like I was saying, I'm in the Minnesota market, so if the Twins are on there, I can still watch it on Roku. It won't be blacked out for me, and the same goes for you if the
Interesting.
Diamondbacks were on there, or Chicago with White Sox or Cubs, they could watch it. So I think that's definitely, it's small. It's a small little gesture they're doing, but it's good to see, and it'd be nice to see them kind of make some more decisions like this that makes it a little bit more accessible and easier for people to watch. Guys they want to watch. I'm sure everyone wants to watch Shohei Ohtani, but might not be able to. So hopefully, I don't know what their schedule's like, but hopefully those people get to be able to see guys like him or just whoever they want to watch, really.
And I think it's an opportunity for them to gauge the interest of the audience, the new audience, right? Like throw a couple games out there, see how people respond to it, see if new people are tuning in, and gauge the interest of the new potential audience. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting deal. I think it's smart for them because I'm sure in retrospect it probably doesn't cost a whole lot of money, but I think it's a smart move for them. Now, to go on to a topic that is my favorite topic of the week, I've been watching a lot of the videos on Twitter, or X as we call it now, NFL talk. Schedule release just came out yesterday. We had all different kinds of schedule releases from different kinds of teams across the NFL. I thought the Bears did a pretty good job. I liked their video. You get a lot of the like early 2000s movie jokes, and I like that the players were brought in. But I think it's fun what teams are doing with the schedule nowadays because it allows their creative team to do exactly what they do best and come up with a fun way to release the schedule. One of my personal favorites, I don't know how you feel, but one of my personal favorites, I loved what the Atlanta Falcons did, where they gave like the NFL Street type of vibe with it, where it looked like a video game. And if you watch the whole video too, there's obviously they throw some shade at some of their rivals, which I thought was kind of fun. Like I know New Orleans Saints was one of them, where a guy runs through a brick wall and he only knocks down the letter S, so it goes from New Orleans Saints to New Orleans Aints. And I'm like, okay, I see what you did there. Well played. But did you watch a bunch of them? Did you watch only the Bears? What did you see?
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched any, not even the Bears. I saw some clips a little bit. Like I think it maybe was the Ravens did a Sims one.
Chargers.
Chargers, okay, yeah. It was the Chargers did a Sims one, and I thought, like, I saw a couple seconds of that. I thought that was funny. I did see a little bit of the street one. Watched some of the Bears one as well. But I mainly was just like, I was out and about for work, so I just was like, hey, let me just see the picture of the schedule. Like, I'll maybe watch these later,
fair.
and so I did get around to it. But I mean, I will say, like, everything that I have seen, even though it's small and I haven't watched one whole video, you're pretty right there. It's really creative. It's letting people do what they do, and I think it's fun. I was talking with someone about the NFL schedule release, and I was saying, it's kind of funny. Everyone gets excited for this. Granted, some of the games get leaked ahead of time, but it's like, you know what? The NFL just does a really good job of marketing the schedule release and just anything in general. And they make an event out of everything, and it always does well. So it's fun to see, all the teams just kind of live up to the hype and give people a lot of stuff that they'll talk about, for better or for worse. I'm sure there's some bad ones out there too, but it was a fun day. Like, I was actually like excited to see what the exact schedule was going to be, and I know we were kind of keeping tabs on it, going back and forth a little bit as some games started coming out. I think it's cool. It's another way to bring excitement around football. as we kind of get ready for OTAs, training camp, all that stuff to start. So
Yep.
I think it's just a fun day.
It almost feels like now it's like and this might sound aggressive to some people, but it almost feels like it's a mini selection Sunday, right? Like you already know the teams you're going to play, you know what games are your road games, you know what games are your home games, but like you don't know the order, and you also don't know how the team's going to drop the schedule now, which is kind of fun. So I like it. I hope they keep doing it in the future. I'm sure at some point it'll tail off, and people won't be as interested as they are right now. But I know it's something I was interested in, and I was just kind of scrolling through Twitter and looking at the different teams. But I think the Bears schedule is really interesting this year. I was listening to Hogan Johns earlier, and they were running through the whole schedule, and they talked themselves into the Bears going 10-7, which I'm cautiously optimistic about. I think that there's definitely some games they could and should win, and then it feels like this year there's a lot of games that are on the fence, especially when you have a rookie quarterback, of course, right? So I know some people said 9-8, 10-7. That kind of seems to be the two most popular records that people are polling. But I just like what they've done with the schedule release. I think it's kind of fun. What did you notice about the Bears schedule when you got a chance to look at it?
I was a little surprised at the lack of primetime games, at least right now. I thought, granted, they got a couple, but like even when they've been really bad, they've gotten like 2 or 3. Just with all the Caleb Williams stuff, I figured they would get a little bit more scheduled now. Granted, stuff can flex, things can change. I just maybe expected
I think they'll be the flex team. I think they'll be the flex team this year. I think a lot of people are keeping an eye on Caleb, seeing how he does, and I think they'll be a very popular flex team this year. But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. But yeah, I just that was kind of my initial takeaway. I love that Sunday Night Football Week 2 game against CJ Stroud. I think that's cool. I think that'll be fun.
That's awesome.
Even if the Bears lose, just seeing those two duel it out should be really exciting for everyone. Not just Bears fans, because that's 2 young quarterbacks that are hopefully going to be taking over the league for a long, long time, and it'd be fun. I shouldn't say it'd be fun. It will be fun to see them kind of start that chapter week 2 into Caleb Williams' career. So I also kind of like the Titans matchup I'm just going straight Bears here, but I also like the Titans matchup week 1. I think that's a good start for him. I'm glad that his debut's at home. I think if he's the player that we're hoping he is and everyone expects him to be, I think that is really, really cool that they're letting Bears fans have his NFL debut at home. That's going to be a hell of a day in Chicago. People are going to be tailgating bright and early. That place is going to be rocking. I won't be anywhere near Soldier Field, but I know I'll be waking up on that day feeling like it's going to be Christmas Day, and I'm glad that is going to be a day for Chicago, and he'll be making his debut in Chicago too. I think that's fantastic.
I love that the first game of the year for Caleb Williams is a very winnable game because it's a home game, and then of course you have the Titans too. That was one of the first things I noticed is like, okay, we can get off on the right start here, and then of course you have to go to see the house that CJ Stroud built after that, but I think it makes for an exciting game. And then you look at the game with Anthony Richardson too. Is he going to be ready in time for that game?
Yeah, he's throwing and stuff now, so unless he has any setbacks, he should be more than good to go by that point.
That could be just as exciting, to see where he bounces back and how he pans out as a dual threat quarterback. I mean, he's got all the athletic ability in the world, but I noticed a couple interesting things. I noticed one of the primetime games is against the Seahawks. That's our brother's team. Used to be a Bears fan, fake Seahawks fan.
Thursday Night Football, I think that's in Seattle, I want to say.
Yeah, day after Christmas. So it'll be December 26th. I think that'll be a fun game. I think that could be an interesting game for Caleb Williams and the Bears, just because it's on the road after the holidays in colder weather.
You got it all wrung. It's a fun game because that's a Shane Waldron revenge game. Mark it down. Bears are putting up 100 that game.
That would, I'd be okay with that. But yeah, I think that there were some interesting chunks in the schedule too. I know that there's a stretch where it's 3 or 4 division rival games right in a row. A couple games with the Lions. There's Vikings games mixed in there, which they'll be a team to watch this year to see how soon JJ McCarthy starts. But I overall, I really like the Bears schedule. They have one of the easiest schedules this year, and I think that even better positions Caleb Williams to have a good rookie season. He already has the weapons. He's got a good offensive coordinator. You can feel how you feel about Matt Eberflus, but it might not even matter at the end of the day. But I think that the schedule and the weapons, even the offensive line looks pretty nice, right? Like there's a couple guys that have to prove their worth in the NFL, but I think most of the offensive line looks fine to me. And I just like that it positions Caleb Williams to see success, because if we are going to put this much time and energy and effort and hope into his hands, we better set his ass up for success, because if we don't, then we just wasted our time trading Justin Fields and going through a new regime all over again.
Yeah, that's not to get like too off topic from schedule release and stuff, but obviously we knew they were taking him with the first pick, and then with their second first round pick this year, I was like, I hope they realize what they have here and they actually take a receiver if there's one there. And instead of just doing what they normally do and like going defense, or because that's just kind of the Bears thing. And they had the opportunity to do that with a guy like Dallas Turner or Latu or whoever, Byron Murphy, who they supposedly liked a lot. We're all there for the taking at 9, but they ended up going with Roma Dunze, and I was like, thank you. Like when we took Mitch, we didn't really help him out a whole lot in that draft, and same goes with Fields. Like with the Bears having the opportunity to continue setting up a new quarterback for success, it was really refreshing to see them do that. And it's not too often you get a guy like Caleb Williams or just any first overall quarterback taken that goes to a team where you have Keenan Allen, you have DJ Moore, you have Cole Kmet. You put Roma Dunze in the mix, and then you got DeAndre Swift. That's just you're really, really putting him in a great spot, and you're giving your team an opportunity to succeed with a rookie quarterback, to where getting 10 wins his first year might not be too crazy, or getting 9 wins his first year might not be too crazy. So, with the schedule they have, I think that's certainly possible, and I don't think anyone's out of bounds for thinking that double-digit wins is realistic. It's just a matter of, what they end up getting out of Caleb when he takes the field. And it could even be a situation where he exceeds 10 wins. Like, anything is on the table. It just, got to see what the kid's all about when he gets out there.
Yeah, I mean, even like the backup tight end, Gerald Everett, man, that's really nice.
Forget about him too.
Like, that dude is a yak monster. He catches the ball and he just throws guys on the ground and just gets yards. So I think they set him up pretty nicely. I know obviously we can talk about Bears talk all day. And as you guys can tell, we've entered into the Chicago sports talk at this point. One situation that you can tell just based off our last episode a little bit that gets frustrating is the status of the Bulls. They've got the 11th pick. I was hoping they would luck out with the lottery and somehow end up top 3, even though it's not that talented. It's like, it's a ticket. You know what I mean? It's a lottery ticket to hopefully get somebody that'll pan out. But they've got the 11th pick. The story came out this week about DeMar DeRozan, but I think we can start with the 11th pick. I mean, who do you even see them looking at with that 11th pick?
Yeah, I joked about it. If Garpax was around still, and like this team still kind of operates that way. It's just those two aren't really there anymore. But they would totally take Zach Edey with the 11th pick. But I I don't think
They still
they'll
might.
do that. Yeah, I hope they don't do that. Not saying he's going to be a bad NBA player. Just that would just not make much sense. But I think if I had my choice, I would take Dalton Connect or Dalton Knecht, however you pronounce his name, from Tennessee. Granted, he is a little bit older of a college prospect, but I think he'll give consistent scoring, which the Bulls could use. Whether or not they lose DeMar DeRozan, I think adding some consistent scoring to help out Kobe White is never a bad thing, and you never know what's going to happen with Levine. I know he's always in the mix to get traded, and if they do end up doing that, then you're losing some more scoring there. So I think looking at a guy like Dalton Knecht would be cool. It's just a matter of if he's going to be there. I think there's a chance he could be, but other teams could see the scoring ability and might jump on him a little bit earlier. So kind of hoping for him. I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to be hard for me to be like dead set on someone specifically, but I will say the only person I don't want them to take is Cody Williams from Colorado, because he is at least in my opinion, he is a spitting image of Patrick Williams, and that just has not worked out well. And I'm sorry, I do not want to take a chance on someone like him again, because that hurt. Like it.
Yeah.
It just,
that means he's already a Bull.
It probably, like, they'll be like, oh, there's so much upside there, he can defend right away in the NBA. It's like, we just saw this guy. It's like
trade up to a top 5 pick and still take him.
Yeah, maybe let's number 1. Maybe let's pump the brakes a little bit. But yeah, I think Dalton Knecht would be probably my choice. But even if they don't take him, I'm not going to be hurt. Who knows what's going to happen with this draft?
Yeah, I think that for me, that's the only pick that if I were to look back on the draft, I could say, okay, yeah, you know what? Like, that actually makes a lot of sense for them, because the Bulls also don't have the best track record of draft picks. I mean, last year's draft pick, I can't even tell you the guy's name anymore. He was out of Tennessee, and he hardly even got any playing time this year. It's like
Julian Phillips.
There it is.
They traded up for him. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they did.
Actually, I think technically they traded in for him. I don't think they had a pick last year, but then they traded into the second round.
I'd have to look back, but yeah, I don't know. Their history of draft picks really isn't all that impressive. When you look at it, I think most recently Kobe White, but like he just now started to flourish into a really productive NBA player.
Yeah. Yeah, the book, or no, I shouldn't say the book was out on him, but there's a point where it looked like he might not even get another contract from the Bulls, and now it looks like a bargain. So it's just, it took a little bit of time, but yeah, he's probably been the most, or not probably, he has been the most recent draft success for them. But I mean, he was a pretty good scorer in college too. It's not like they just did some miracle work with him, No,
he was. I remember I was excited when we drafted him. He was a fun player in college, and he's becoming a fun player in the NBA now. And props to him for putting in the work, honestly, because he's a guy that went to North Carolina, was drafted relatively high. Like, he could have convinced himself to just settle, make a second contract, and call it a life. But that guy put in the work, and he's seeing the results. He's seeing the fruits of his labor. So, props to Kobe White. DeMar DeRozan situation, man.
We
I'm
talked
in a position
about it last week. We said it was going to happen.
Man, DeMar, just shut up. I love you, DeMar. You're a great player. You're a great vet, but just shut up. And the only reason I say that is because if you tell the Bulls that you want to be back, they'll probably bring you back because they just want to be mediocre all over again. I just wish he would take the stance of like, hey guys, I want to be traded, and just force the Bulls' hand, because the Lakers want him bad. I mean, he would love to play in LA, and the Lakers would love to have DeMar. But DeMar and the Bulls just have some kind of romantic relationship that, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense other than just him cashing in checks.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling this. I kind of had a feeling this was going to be a pretty big thing this offseason. Demar, like you're saying, he's always seemed happy in Chicago. When before Lonzo Ball got hurt, like the team did look pretty good. They looked like they maybe could win a playoff series or two. So I understand why he was happy back then, but it's been straight downhill since then, and he still wants to stick around and stuff. And the crazy part about it is like he's a really good player. Like he's been fun to watch in Chicago. The Bulls will probably overpay for him when they don't have to. Like they'll just overshoot his market because they want to keep him around, and he'll take that like anyone should. But it's like, I almost wish he just didn't like it here, because it's just going to put them in the same situation that they were in before, and it's going to be the same repetitive process where they never stick to trying to fully compete or trying to fully rebuild. It's just, I think we can make it work this time, so let's try this again. But, if you try the same thing over and over again and it doesn't work and you keep getting the same results, I think you're just at that point insane to continue to try it, and that's just what the Bulls keep doing. And bringing him back, that's not gonna do anything for them other than give them less money to either bring in a young guy to try to maybe start a little bit of a rebuild, or to actually improve the roster to a point where they can be more than a play-in team. And it's just going to be, well, we can mark this down. We can talk about this a year from now. It's probably going to be the same situation. They'll give DeMar DeRozan like $40 million a year. No one's going to give him nearly that, and we're going to be sitting here thinking, oh gosh, Bulls got the 10th pick. We weren't bad enough to get one when we needed it, and it's just frustrating. But LA's always a possibility for him. He's from there. He always talks about going home. Maybe this will be the time he does. I hope this is the time he does. Because hey man, go play at home. That'd be fun. You would enjoy it.
Yeah.
LA's not a bad place from what I've heard. Never been. Can't speak about it from my own perspective, but being able to play with possibly LeBron, depending on his situation, Anthony Davis, that'd be pretty cool. I guess the Clippers are trying to still compete, given their situation. So hey, maybe the Clippers get involved and he goes over there. I don't know what they're going to do with Paul George. Sounds like he might test the market, or I don't know if he's a free agent or not, or maybe he's restricted. Because I thought I saw something about them maybe trading him. But yeah, maybe he looks over there too and tries to, help the Clippers get over the hump or something. But, if I were DeMar DeRozan, and DeMar, if you're listening to this, man, go home. You deserve it. See what it's like. Maybe you like it. Stay around for a bit. Hey, you know what? Maybe you can end your career there, or maybe you can, if you really like Chicago that much, I'll tell you what. We'll sign you to a one-day deal. You can retire a Bull, and everyone will be happy, and then we'll move on from there. But
if you want to play a game, if you even want to play a game in that one-day contract, we'll let you play a game. That's fine.
Yeah,
and honestly, Sean, LA, when you're making DeMar money, LA is a great place.
I'm sure. Yeah, most places are. But I hope that's what he does, or just go somewhere else. Honestly, it's hard to talk crap about DeMar DeRozan because A, he's a great human being, and B, he really revitalized his career in Chicago. When they signed him at first, I was like, this is a waste of money. This guy stinks now. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. It definitely wasn't a waste of money, and he's a great player. It's just it just doesn't help the Bulls with him being around.
No, it doesn't, and it's a situation where it's like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, go end your career with a playoff team where you can actually win games, feel a playoff atmosphere that you deserve, and you just have to hope that it happens for him, because it seems like the Bulls are just stuck in that Jerry Reinsdorf methodology. I think it was a couple years back where one of the GMs had mentioned he like leaked that Jerry Reinsdorf said the best place to finish every year is second place because you keep your fans coming back, but then you never have to spend the money for like playoffs and whatnot. And the fans are always going to come back wanting more and hungry for more. And it just seems like that's the mindset that he's taken with the Bulls too, which is it's sad, but at this point, I think we're used to it. Like we're just used to being mediocre. And to be honest with you, dude, like that's more frustrating for DeMar to be in a situation like the Bulls last season than if he was in Detroit. Because like if this guy was in Detroit, he at least knows he's going to lose every damn game, every single night. You know what I mean? Like he knows what to expect. But last year, the Bulls would like go and beat the Celtics one night and then lose to the Pistons the next night. And that's more frustrating than just being on a team that just flat out sucks. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me for him wanting to be in Chicago. And for all we know, that could be his agent just telling him to say the right things as they kind of gauge the market themselves and, look at his future. But I don't know. We could go on and on and on about how messed up and frustrating the Bulls situation is. But to move on to something that's at least got a little bit of a brighter future. And when I mean a little bit, I mean a lot. Blackhawks, they've obviously got their star. They've got the number 2 pick overall. One thing that popped into my head, and obviously we're a ways down the road. I think the draft is end of June. But I think it could be kind of fun to maybe live stream, like do a podcast while the draft is going on, at least the first round. But yeah, do you want to talk about the Blackhawks, how you feel about where they're at right now and what their future looks like? I know there's a couple guys they're looking at with the number 2 pick, so maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously the big story with them right now is, like we talked about last week, they got the number 2 pick in the NHL draft that's coming up next month, which is going to be in the Las Vegas Sphere, which will be kind of cool. Seeing how they do all that. And obviously, it's pretty decided that Macklin Celebrini is going to be the first pick that's going to San Jose. They brought the kid out to the draft lottery live on ESPN, so pretty much.
It's kind of awkward.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Bedard last year, but he was on via Zoom, so he just, they kind of talked about how he was feeling, same old stuff. How you feeling, and what's it like getting to this point in your career, blah 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 blah. But yeah, so they brought him out. Obviously, it'd be a shocker if he didn't end up in San Jose. So that leaves the Blackhawks at 2, and the big debate going on between Blackhawks fans and everyone is who they should take at 2, and it's kind of dwindled down to 2 players in specific. You have Demidov, who is playing out in Russia. He's a forward, and you have Lev Shinov, a defenseman from Michigan State. And they both kind of bring interesting things to the table. And kind of before we get into this talk a little bit, you really can't go wrong with either of them. Demidov, he's got some good traits like puck handling. His creativity, his scoring ability. People rave about his hockey IQ and say he can be a top 6 forward in the NHL. And obviously from the Blackhawks perspective, we got Connor Bedard. Now what else can we get around him? We got prospects like Frank Nazar, and we got guys on the team now like Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno and stuff, but none of them have quite as high of a scoring ceiling as Demidov is projected to have. So getting someone like him, that would be a tremendous help to the Blackhawks. And going on the other side here, Lev Shinov, he's just a big, physically gifted, athletic defenseman. He also brings offensive potential, obviously not quite as much as Demidov brings, but Levshunov, he does a lot of good stuff as a defenseman in terms of bringing the puck into the offensive zone, clearing the puck. A lot of people think he can be a top pair defenseman and he can make an impact pretty quickly. So for everyone, that's the debate here. And like I was saying, you can't really go wrong with either. But I think if I had the choice, I'd probably go with Demidov. I'm going to assume the Blackhawks are pretty satisfied with how their defensive prospects are looking right now. A guy they took in the first round a couple of years ago, Sam Rinzel, just had a really good year out in Minnesota. He won some postseason accolades. He was on the All Big Ten team. I think he won, or no, he was a finalist for Big Ten Rookie of the Year. So the kid had a really good season. And I think, with the way some of their D prospects have been playing lately, I think they'll maybe look towards going offensive with that second pick. And I'd be surprised if that's the route they go, if it's anyone other than Demidov. That's someone that could slide in immediately as the organization's top prospect. And just kind of looking at it from a bigger perspective here, Scott Powers of The Athletic, he did a story recently where he talked with 9 draft experts about who the Blackhawks should take, whether it's Levshunov or Demidov, and 8 of them said that they should take Demidov. That's just kind of the consensus I feel like a lot of people are taking. But if they do decide to go defense and go with a guy like Levshunov, that really is not a bad choice either. But the good thing for the Hawks is they have multiple first-round picks this year and also multiple second-round picks. So if they do go forward first, they could address defense later on in the draft, and they can still get a premium prospect. Not to mention, they got 2 and 20. They could always package and move up from 20 if they really want to. So they got options. I think being able to have a Connor Bedard and someone like Demidov on your team and in your top 6 is something that could be really, really, really fun and something that could really help the Hawks take that next step. So that's kind of where my head's at, and that's kind of where I hope they're going. And it seems like a lot of people feel that way too, especially Hawks fans. I've noticed kind of want him too, but obviously getting a defensive prospect of the caliber of Levshunov and what he can do on both ends of the ice would be pretty big too.
Yeah, I was listening to Barstool Chief talk about it because obviously he's a diehard Blackhawks fan, and one thing he brought up that I didn't even think about with Demidov is the whole Russia situation and whether or not, it sounds like he has one more year in Russia, but would he stay there longer? And, that obviously creates a little bit of cause for concern. His skills are his skills, right? And I'll preface it with this. I don't follow the Blackhawks like I follow the White Sox, like I follow the Bulls, like I follow the Bears. So Sean's definitely got way more intel here than I do, but My question to you is, you look at a guy like Levshunov, okay? They've got the number 2 overall pick. Does it equate to, in the NFL draft, if the Blackhawks went with a defenseman, number 2 overall, does it equate to, in the NFL draft, if the Bears were to take like a cornerback in the top 3 picks? Because to me, it seems like it's a little aggressive to go defenseman at number 2 overall, but again, I mean, you know way more about it than I do. It's just one thing that I thought about. I was like, does it seem like a little bit of a reach at number 2?
Skill wise, with Levshunov specifically, no, I don't think it's a reach at number 2. But from the grand scheme of position wise, yeah, that's not a far off comparison. I think if you look at what positions have the hardest adjustment when they make the jump to the NHL, it's defensemen. It's just hard to be a defenseman when, especially the way that hockey is evolving, just how talented and skilled these offensive players are and these forwards and centers and whatnot. Does
size have anything to do with it? Is it because obviously some of these guys are pretty young, so they still have to get in the weight room and bulk up? Like, does that have anything to do with why they have a harder time adjusting?
Just depends on who it is. It's just the game's so much faster. Everyone's so much better, and for a guy like Levshunov, he could go to the NHL today and probably do pretty good. Like he's big, he's physical, he's a talented guy. But it's just like like you got guys like Connor Bedard and Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid and anyone like they can fit a shot through a super tight window. They don't need much time to rip a shot off, and it's hard to defend people who are so skilled and have the ability to do things like that. And unfortunately, if you make it to the NHL, you probably can't do that, no matter who you are. So just adjusting to that big difference in talent is really hard, and that's why you'll see some guys like for the Blackhawks, Kevin Korchinski. He was a very highly touted defensive prospect. He played in the NHL all year this year. It was a roller coaster for him. It's unpredictable, and then you got a guy like Alex Vlasic, who was a second round pick a few years prior. He just got a long term deal. He looks like he's going to be a defenseman of the future. No one would have thought that would have been the case going into this year. And if I could be wrong, maybe someone did, but it was pretty surprising just how good Alex Vlasic was, and that's what makes it tough. It's a hard position to play. It's really hard to adjust to in the NHL, but you got guys that come along where they're already kind of looking like they could handle their own for the most part. And I feel like Levshunov is a guy like that. But yeah, it is, to answer your question, yeah, it is kind of similar, I feel like, in a sense of corners, You got some guys that come up and they get cooked for a year, and then year two they're great. It's just repetition helps a lot too, and for positions like that, like sure you can go at people in practice, but the best way for you to learn is actually do it in the game. Get used to what your opponent's reacting to versus in practice you might know your friend's tendencies a little more, or you get a read, the playbook, so you might, hey, this formation looks familiar, I wonder what they're doing. So yeah, it's kind of similar. But for someone of Levshunov's skills and what he brings, I don't think that's a reach at two at all. And there's a lot of people out there that think he is the second best prospect and would take him if they had the choice.
That's good. That's what I was hoping to hear. It seems like he's kind of in a class of his own when you look at it with his position in this year's draft. But yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing with the Blackhawks and what I've been able to gather is Blackhawks fans feel polar opposite about their front office than where the Bulls fans stand. They've got a lot of faith in their front office, that they know how to find talent, they know how to grade talent, and they know how to draft talent. It seems like they're willing to spend when the time arises to put the right pieces around Connor Bedard. So it'll be. I think this season will be an interesting one. Depending on what the rest of the offseason looks like, they could start to sniff the playoffs next year, but I think that they're definitely 2, maybe 3 years away from seriously contending, pending, how the rest of these players pan out. But I think that's about it. Did we cover everything? Is there anything that you can think of that we missed?
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about the White Sox, and I got a little segment at the end too.
Okay, we'll fire away.
So for the White Sox, let's see here. They took 3 of 4 from Cleveland last weekend, and overall team's finally starting to play a little bit better. So just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that, and get your thoughts on their play recently, and guys like Brian Ramos, who came up and made his MLB debut. He's been helping out a little bit, and Garrett Crochet, looking like a freaking ace again. So yep. Just wanted to see your thoughts on how the White Sox have been playing lately.
Yeah, I saw they won 11 of the last 19, which to some fan bases that might not seem like a big deal. That might just kind of seem like a decent stretch. But for how bad the White Sox started the season. I think that that's a pretty good stretch for them. I think that they're finally starting to show like they can actually play in the MLB. To start this season, they looked like a minor league team, but Garrett Crochet, yeah, he's come back. He's looking nice again. He had a couple rough starts there. I think there's a couple pieces in the bullpen that look nice, which could be nice trade pieces at the trade deadline. I did see Ramos. He's playing well, which is really impressive because he jumped from Double-A straight to MLB, didn't he?
Yeah, and he was playing horrible in Double-A too. He started turning it on a little bit, like right before he got called up, but he was hitting under 200 in Double-A, which, to be fair, the Southern League, which Birmingham Barons White Sox Double-A affiliate plays in, that is a hard league to hit in. But he was really struggling there for the most part.
Yeah, and props to him. I mean, he seems like a really good clubhouse guy too. I've seen a couple interviews with him. I think it was against Tampa Bay where he almost hit a home run, and the media was talking to him after the game, and he was joking around. He's like, "Man, had I done another couple push-ups, that ball would have cleared the fence."
Yeah.
Like, good for this guy. So he's been fun to watch. I think it's way too early to even entertain Colson Montgomery right now. I think he'll probably be a late season addition, and I hope he's a late season addition, definitely after the All-Star break, because I feel like he's still developing. I mean, he's still coming into what an MLB player looks like. And yes, he can hit. He's naturally talented with the bat, but I think that there's still a lot of instinctual things that he's learning in AAA right now. So I hope they keep him down for a little bit. The guys that we got in the trades in this offseason, especially in the Dylan Cease trade, have looked really nice. I'm impressed. I'm happy. I'm excited to either watch or check the stat line. So I think that's my one big takeaway so far, other than like the actual White Sox players, is these guys that they got from San Diego, they're playing really well, especially Thorpe. He's looking really nice. Iriarte, he's been shoving for the most part, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, kind of circling back to the Major League Club here, I crunched some numbers, and Garrett Crochet's last few weeks have been pretty interesting. So from April 13th through April 24th, he made 3 starts where he had a 13.11 ERA, 11.2 innings pitched, 17 earned runs, 7 walks, 19 strikeouts, gave up 4 home runs, and opponents were hitting .327 against him.
Jesus.
Fast forward to now, 4 starts between April 29th and May 15th. He has a 1.23 ERA, 22 innings pitched. He's given up 13 hits, 3 earned runs, walks 4, 30 strikeouts, given up 2 home runs, and opponents are just hitting .205 against him. So he started out strong. He hit a wall or had a rough stretch there for a little bit, and now he seems to be coming back to form. I don't know what they're going to do with him. There was a report that they're listening to offers on just about everyone. If he keeps pitching like this, he looks like he could probably be your ace, or he looks like he can net you a hell of a return too. So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow, what they end up doing with him. Brian Ramos, you kind of talked about it. He's been fun. I personally got to see him when he was playing in the Arizona Complex League, and granted, he was just a little 17 or 18-year-old at the time, but he's come a long way since then. He's honed in his approach a little bit. He was pretty much an aggressive free swinger when I saw him in Arizona, so it's nice to see him have a little bit of patience here. He's slashing 281, 294, and 344. He's picked up a hit in 7 out of 10 games he's played in. He's had 2 multi-hit games. Right now he's hurt. He left the game against the Nationals with, I think it was some quad tightness, but hopefully he gets back, because he's been fun to watch. I know a lot of people think he's a third baseman of the future, and granted, he's, like you're saying, he went from Double-A to the MLB, so that's That's a big jump and a little bit earlier than people anticipated. But if he keeps hitting like this, man, like let the kid play. Like we got nothing to lose,
Yeah.
you know. We can't pick any higher than 10th because the anti-tanking rules of the MLB are stupid. And a team like the
Go
White Sox,
figure.
who needs to benefit from getting high draft picks because we don't spend money, can't can't do that. So you know, for me, it's just like you know, if they win some games like they've been winning now, they're 6-2 over their last 8, 1-2 series. One against Cleveland, which is 4 games, and then just recently the Washington Nationals. Like, it's just I'm happy to see him winning some games, you know, because it doesn't matter. Like we're probably going to pick 10th, and that's
Yeah.
our fate for the end of the year. We're not going to be anywhere near the playoffs. So you know what? If they win a few, cool. As long as they're enjoyable and people that matter are playing well, that's great. And it seems to be shaping up to where we're getting some good production out of people that matter. And another one I wanted to bring up, who I know you like or you're coming around on, is Corey Lee. His last 13 games, he's hitting 357. He's got 15 hits, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and he's got a weighted runs created plus of 157. For those who might not know, weighted runs created plus, it basically is just determines how many runs you create from your team or for your team, and it's graded to where 100 is average. So he's 157. That's pretty damn good. He's got a hit in 5 consecutive games. They got him for Kendall Graveman. They were taking a lottery ticket on him. Now he's looking like he might actually be part of this team moving forward. I don't know if he'll stick a catcher, if they'll move him around to first base, or he'll have a DH. You know, roll down the line. But he looks like he could be a piece. He's having a really good year, and he's been fun to watch too.
Yeah. He's been entertaining. I think what's interesting about him is it almost seems like when he plays, he puts the team on his back.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe that seems aggressive to say, but like he's productive every damn game he plays. And even if he's not hitting bombs or hitting RBIs, he's throwing people out at second. And it's just so impressive for a rookie, especially for a rookie that was traded for a relief pitcher, like you said. It's really cool to see him get an opportunity and Ramos get an opportunity. And I think that's what this season is all about, right? It's about opportunities for younger guys to come in, get playing time when there's little to no pressure. We're going to suck. We're going to finish bottom 10 one way or another. But I think it's a big opportunity for them to get playing time, to develop, to find out what kind of player they're going to be in the big leagues. And there's a couple guys who are already taking advantage of it. And like you said, with Lee, you've got Edgar Caro in the minors too, who's a catcher prospect, and he's looking pretty good so far. Worst case scenario, you move Lee to first base and you still get to take advantage of his bat, or to DH, and you still get to take advantage of his bat. But I think he's been a really nice piece. It's something that it's made White Sox baseball watchable. And same with the last 2 series too. Them winning these last 2 series, it's made White Sox baseball watchable, which I appreciate. If we're going to finish, let's just say bottom 10 this year, then let's at least win a couple series. Let's watch some prospects develop.
Yeah.
Let's watch some younger kids come into their own and see what happens in the future. Because, we're not going to make the playoffs this year, but let's at least have some hope for the future. That's what I heard.
I don't know. They look like a playoff team now. No, I completely agree. I told myself kind of going into the season, like the motto I have for the White Sox this year is just let the kids play. Granted they just signed him, but we don't need to see Mike Clevenger. Let's let Nick Nastrini get up. Let's let Jonathan Cannon get up. Let's see what we got in some of these arms. Let's give them some extended looks and see what we got for the future here, because we're gonna have to get to a point where, all right, we're committed and we want to try to start winning now. We need to know what we have, and we need to know how we need to supplement the team in free agency, or what we need to focus on in the draft. And The only way they're going to be able to accomplish those things is by letting those kids get long looks. And granted, some of them are a little bit ways away. It's going to take some time for them to get closer to the MLB or even for them to make their MLB debuts and stuff. But I just see them. Brad Keller and Mike Clevenger getting a lot of time. It's like, come on, like I know we need innings, and I know those guys can give you decent innings, but like let's let some other guys, some younger guys, get some experience too. Like, we got nothing to lose. Like the season's already over. So let's figure out what we got for next year or the year after for guys who are ready, and let's go from there. And I'm sure most White Sox fans would probably enjoy watching that too. But, will you sacrifice winning some games? Absolutely. But, that'll help your team down the road, whether that's valuable experience for guys who stick around or, hey, so-and-so didn't pan out the way we hoped, so we're going to go look in another direction. So I think it just benefits everyone involved. It's there's a lot to figure out. They got to, see who's important and who's going to stick around, and got to get some guys up and get them some time to be able to do stuff like that.
I think it just allows them to have fun. When there's no pressure to make the postseason or stay on the roster, I think it allows them to have fun. It allows them to stay loose, and it allows their true talents to come through without too much weight on their shoulders. So we'll see, man. I think it's going to be an interesting season. It's definitely been a roller coaster season already because they went from, God, I can't even watch this team to, okay, now there's some nice pieces here. It's actually fun to tune in and watch this team and watch these kids grow. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they could go 5-15 over the next 20 games for all we know. So,
well, actually, now that you bring that up, I was going to say too, like, yeah, they've been playing better, but I don't know if you looked at their schedule coming up. It's Yankees, Blue Jays, and Orioles. So all this little slimmer of positivity we had, it is going right down the drain starting this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. So we'll see. I mean, we'll keep you guys updated. We'll give you our thoughts as the season continues. But yeah, I mean, that's closing out the White Sox. You said you had something to close out the episode, though, huh?
I have one last segment for us.
I'm ready for it.
I told you I'm going to do it. I am a WNBA League Pass subscriber, and I am making an effort to watch the Chicago Sky because I like the team they're building. They drafted Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, and I was like, you know what? Good for them. That team's going to be fun. So I got WNBA League Pass. And you know what I did? It is Thursday night when we're recording this. You know what I did Wednesday night? I watched Angel Reese's WNBA debut. And she scored 12 points, shooting 5 of 14 from the field, 2 of 8 from the free throw line. And it was a little bit of a rough start for her. She started off slow, but she played better down the stretch. She looked pretty good defensively, made some nice plays, and the team's they probably won't win too many games, but they're gonna be fun to watch, especially when Cardoso comes back. She's sidelined for about three-ish weeks as she works on dealing with a shoulder injury. So once she gets back, they'll be a lot more. I shouldn't say a lot more fun to watch. More fun to watch. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know I am sticking to my word, and I'm gonna try to make sure
Nice.
I tune in as much as I can, and we're gonna get some Chicago Sky talk in too. So it was just fun watching. Angel Reese is a big name in women's basketball, so it was kind of cool seeing her make her professional debut with Chicago on her chest. So
She's got energy, man. She's got a lot of energy. She kind of reminds me of like a female version of like Kevin Garnett. Just a lady you don't want to play against, a lady you want on your team and you hate it if she's not, right? Like she's obviously very productive. There's no questioning that, but like she's got this attitude and this like swagger to her. So it'll be interesting to watch. It'll be fun to watch. I didn't know Cardoso was out for that long, but once she comes back, you'll have the Twin Towers, which will be fun to watch with those two down low, and you'll have to fill us in. So thanks for the Sky talk, and can't wait to hear more, Sean.
Yeah, this is just opening week. There's so much more for me to watch. I can't wait just to sink my paws into all this Sky coverage this year. It's but I mean, hey, like it's a fun team. They're exciting. So honestly, I was sitting around watching it and I enjoyed it. Not that I didn't think I was going to or anything like that, but I was like, hey, you know what? I'm glad I did this, and I'm gonna keep watching them. They're playing again Saturday against the Dallas Wings. I'll be there.
Well, what I appreciate about women's basketball is it's actually way more pure basketball, right? Like it's not 3-pointers and dunks like you see in the NBA for the most part. But yeah, maybe I'll have to tune in myself and catch a couple Sky games, and we can talk about it on a future episode. But as far as this episode goes, just so we don't go too long here, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll have plenty more coverage next week. Again, if you want questions or if there's any topics you want us to talk about, make sure to send us over an email. It's banterfromthebenchpod@gmail.com. We're happy to talk about any different topics or questions that you guys want to hear more about. Or if there's any like drafts that you want us to do, like old school jersey drafts or mascot drafts or something like that, we can do that too.
Speaking of old school jerseys, I don't know if you've seen them or not. I have to get this off. Giants release theirs. Absolute hideous uniforms. They remind me of the disgusting Green Bay Packers uniforms that they wore. Absolute disgusting.
That's the first thing that crossed my mind too. And they did the modern helmet with it. I'm like, why didn't you just go a solid blue? This is just horrendous across the board. But yeah, that's it for this episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will be back next week with plenty more to talk about, and looking forward to it. You guys have a good rest of your day. Have a good weekend. Take care.